They call it software development. I call it babysitting. 12 million lines of code, 400 servers, and the digital infrastructure that powers half the e-commerce in North America. My name is Margaret. For 19 years, I've been the invisible architect holding Nexus Digital Systems together. You don't know me, but if you ordered groceries online, booked a flight through an app, or paid your electric bill on your phone, I'm the reason it worked. I'm the Senior Systems Integration Specialist, which is corporate speak for the woman who knows where every digital skeleton is buried and has the encryption keys in her pocket. I don't have a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. I have a cubicle that smells like cold coffee and thermal paste, buried deep in the server wing of the building. And I like it that way. The quiet allows me to hear the hum of the machine. I know when a DNS attack in Eastern Europe is going to crash our authentication servers 3 hours before the security team even sees the traffic spike. I know which cloud vendors are throttling bandwidth and which ones will provision emergency capacity at 3 a.m. because I helped their CTO debug a memory leak in 2016. But let's get one thing straight before I tell you how I brought this place to its knees. I didn't want to be a legend. I just wanted to do my damn job. Hey, real quick, before I get into the blood and guts of how I took down a $2 billion tech empire with a single email, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button and upvote this story. It helps the algorithm know you like watching digital train wrecks in slow motion. Thanks. Now, back to the carnage. The problem started, as it always does, with a succession. Old Man Crawford, the founder, didn't die, but he retired to a ranch in Montana that probably cost more than the GDP of a small country. He was a hard-ass, sure, but he was a hard-ass who understood code architecture. We respected each other. We had an understanding. I kept his systems running, and he kept the equity vesting. Then came Derek Crawford, 29 years old, MBA from a school his daddy endowed a computer science building to get him into. Hair so perfectly styled, it looked like it was rendered by an AI. He walked into the CEO's office wearing a Patagonia vest over a designer t-shirt, smelling like cryptocurrency and unearned confidence. He didn't know a database index from a dinner index, but suddenly he was the captain of the ship. His first week, he installed a meditation pod in the break room. His second week, he fired the entire QA team to replace them with automated testing, which meant the production bugs tripled within 72 hours. By month 3, he was walking around the floor with a woman named Brittany, who was apparently our new chief wellness officer or culture architect or whatever title you give your girlfriend to get her on the payroll. I kept my head down. I'm a professional. I've survived 2.com crashes, a global ransomware attack, and a data center fire that required me to restore critical databases using backup tapes from a storage locker in New Jersey. I could survive Derek, or so I thought. The friction wasn't immediate. It was a slow burn, like a memory leak that eventually crashes the server. Derek didn't like me. I was legacy. I was analog. I was a middle-aged woman in a cardigan who refused to use Slack because I preferred to SSH into the servers and fix things myself. To him, I was technical debt. To me, he was a Chrome extension on a mainframe, flashy, superficial, and completely useless when the system actually crashed. I remember the day the dynamic shifted. It was a Wednesday. I was deep in the code, patching a critical vulnerability in our payment processing API. These systems are sensitive. They handle 400 million transactions per month. One wrong character, and credit cards start declining across 3 time zones. I had been on a video call with our security auditor for 5 hours, walking through the penetration test results that could make or break our PCI compliance certification. Derek breezed by my desk, Brittany trailing behind him like a loading screen that never completes. "Margaret," he said, not stopping, just tossing the words over his shoulder like a deprecated function. "We need to talk about your workspace. It's cluttered, bad energy for the innovation zone." My desk was covered in network diagrams, server logs, and sticky notes with IP addresses that I'd memorized but kept as backup. It was the nervous system of the company. "I'm in the middle of the PCI audit." "Derek," I said, covering my microphone, "if I lose focus now, you lose the ability to process payments." He stopped. He turned around, giving me that pitying smile. "People give to legacy systems they're about to deprecate. We have AI for that now." "Margaret," he said, "move it to Notion. And seriously, lose the paper. It's not very future forward." He walked away. Brittany giggled. The security auditor was still on the line. "Everything okay, Marge?" she asked. "Fine," I said, lighting a mental cigarette because I quit the real ones 8 years ago. And God, did I miss them? Just a minor bug in the org chart. Now, about that SQL injection vulnerability. I saved the audit. I saved the payment processing. The company processed $600 million that quarter without a single breach. Did I get a thank you? No. I got an email from HR about the clean desk policy. But the breaking point wasn't work. It never is. It's always the personal disrespect that lights the fuse. It was late October. Peak traffic season was ramping up. Black Friday prep, holiday shopping surge, end-of-year enterprise renewals. Everything was moving at once. I was working 14-hour days, fueled by energy drinks and spite. Then the email landed. Subject: mandatory attendance. Celebrating visionary leadership. It was an invitation to Derek's birthday party. Join us this Saturday at the Crawford Estate for an evening of innovation, celebration, and artisanal cocktails as we honor our CEO, Derek Crawford, on his 30th journey around the sun. Attendance is mandatory for all senior technical staff. Saturday, the Saturday before Black Friday, the day our traffic would spike to 40 million concurrent users. The day I had to personally oversee the load balancer configuration because our cloud provider had a known scaling bug that I'd been managing manually for 3 years. The day that if anything went wrong, every major retailer using our platform would see error pages instead of shopping carts. I looked at the invitation. It was embedded in the email with animated confetti. It probably crashed half the company's Outlook clients. I hit reply. "Derek, happy early birthday. Unfortunately, I cannot attend. I have the Black Friday infrastructure deployment scheduled for Saturday. It requires live monitoring due to the traffic-sensitive nature of our systems. Have a drink for me. Regards." Margaret, I thought that was it. Professional, polite, reasonable. I was wrong. The next morning, the office felt different. You know that feeling when the system load spikes right before a cascading failure? The air was heavy. The Slack channels were too quiet. People were looking at me. Then looking away, I sat down, booted up my workstation, and took a sip of my cold coffee. My login failed. Access denied. That's weird. I thought. I typed it again. Access denied. I was reaching for the phone to call IT when I heard the click of heels and the squeak of expensive sneakers. "Margaret." Derek's voice boomed. He wasn't smiling today. I spun my chair around. There he was, flanked by Brittany, holding a tablet like a digital clipboard, and two security guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Is the VPN down?" I asked, though, deep in my gut, right where the ulcer was starting to form, I knew the answer. "We're making some changes." "Margaret," Derek said. He smoothed his vest. It was fleece, forest green, a power vest for a man with no power. "We're pivoting to a more agile leadership structure. Your refusal to integrate with the team culture," he paused, referencing the party without saying it, "was the final indicator. You're not a culture fit." I stared at him, the silence stretched out like an infinite loop. "You're firing me," I stated flatly, "because I'm working this Saturday instead of watching you drink craft cocktails. It's about alignment." Brittany chimed in. Her voice was high and nasal. "We need people who resonate with our frequency." I looked at Brittany. I looked at Derek. I looked at the security guards. "Derek," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "I manage the integration contracts for 240 enterprise clients. I am the authorized administrator for our AWS infrastructure, our Stripe payment processing, and our Cloudflare DDoS protection. If I leave, those systems don't just transfer to the cloud. They are the cloud." Derek laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound. "Everyone is replaceable. Margaret, that's Tech 101. Now, hand over your badge. Security will escort you out." I looked at my desk, the network diagrams, the server logs, the little framed photo of my cat, Pixel. I stood up. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't flip the monitor. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my plastic ID badge, and dropped it into Derek's outstretched hand. "Okay," I said. Derek looked disappointed. He wanted a scene. He wanted me to beg. He wanted to feel like the disruptor crushing the legacy system. "Tell your dad I said good luck," I added. "My dad is in Montana." Derek sneered. "He doesn't care about the overhead." "He will," I said. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed the picture of Pixel, and I walked out. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the sight of Derek's smug face, I checked my watch. It was 9:22 a.m. By 9:45 a.m., the first API call would start failing at the East Coast data center. And by 10:15 a.m., the entire Nexus Digital Systems network was going to start realizing that the brain had just been disconnected from the body. I wasn't just the overhead. I was the kill switch. And I had just been triggered. The air outside the office building smelled like exhaust and autumn leaves. It was a gray morning, the kind that seeps into your code comments. But for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel the weight. I felt light. I walked across the parking lot to my 2018 Honda Accord. It had a scratch on the bumper from a server rack delivery I supervised 2 years ago. I tossed my bag and the picture of Pixel onto the passenger seat. I didn't start the car immediately. Instead, I sat there, listening to the rain tap against the roof. Most people, when they get fired after 2 decades of service, they panic. They worry about the mortgage. They worry about health insurance. They worry about their GitHub profile. And sure, a part of me was doing that math. I'm a single woman in my 40s. The job market isn't exactly begging for people who know how to manually configure a load balancer from 2012. But another part of me, the part that had dealt with crashed servers, angry CTOs, and midnight deployments, was already moving into incident response mode. Except this time, I wasn't managing the incident for Nexus. I was the incident. I pulled out my phone. It was my personal cell. Thank God. I've always kept a firewall between my life and the company's property. I opened my email app, not the company email. My access there was cut the second Derek smirked. But my personal Gmail, the address I had given to every major vendor, every cloud provider, and every enterprise client over the last 2 decades, not for official business, but for emergencies. Call me here if the servers catch fire. I used to tell them, well, I struck the match. Now it was time to watch it burn. I didn't send a mass blast. That's amateur hour. That looks like sabotage. No, I needed to be compliant. Maliciously, beautifully compliant. I typed out a draft. Subject, notice of change in authorized administration. To whom it may concern, effective immediately. I, Margaret Chen, am no longer employed by Nexus Digital Systems. As such, I am no longer the authorized administrator or point of contact for any active service level agreements, API integrations, or infrastructure management contracts, per Section 12.4 of our Standard Enterprise Service Agreement. Key technical personnel continuity. Please be advised that my departure may trigger an automatic review or suspension of administrative access pending the appointment of a qualified successor. Please direct all future critical system matters to Derek Crawford, CEO. Best regards, Margaret. I read it over. It was dry. It was factual. It was legally bulletproof. Section 12.4. That was the magic bullet. See, years ago, when Nexus was scaling aggressively, our enterprise clients were nervous about vendor lock-in. They wanted guarantees to soothe them. Old man Crawford had me insert a clause into our major contracts. It basically said that if the key technical personnel, me, who held the system knowledge, left the company, the client had the right to immediately pause integrations or demand a security audit until they vetted the new technical team. It was a trust clause. They trusted me, not the platform. Derek didn't know about Section 12.4. Derek probably thought a service-level agreement was a Spotify subscription. I hit send on the first email, then the second, then the third. I went down the list, alphabetically, a BC, Amazon Web Services Partnership Team, sent. BigCommerce Integration Support, sent. Cloudflare Enterprise Security, sent. I sat there for 25 minutes, just hitting send. It was rhythmic, therapeutic, like clearing a cache. But every clear cost Nexus $100,000 in emergency support fees. My phone buzzed. It was Tony from the AWS partnership team. Margaret, what the hell is this email? His voice rumbled through the speaker. I just got a bounce back from your work address saying, user unknown. I'm out? Tony, I said, leaning back in my seat. Derek let me go this morning. Culture fit. Culture fit. Tony laughed. A barking sound. Does he know the renewal paperwork isn't even signed yet? We're supposed to close the enterprise tier upgrade next week. He doesn't seem to think it matters. Tony, he thinks the AI handles it. IA don't buy me a beer when my team is working Christmas to keep your traffic flowing. Tony grumbled. So who's handling the certificate rotation tonight? Those SSL certs expire at midnight. If my systems don't get the new keys signed by an authorized admin, that would be Derek, I said. Or maybe Brittany. She resonates on a high frequency. Tony, I'm sure she can resonate the certificates through. Yeah, I don't think so, Tony said. I ain't risking a security breach. If you ain't signing off, the API stays locked. Section 12.4 right. Section 12.4 I confirmed. Strict adherence to security protocols. You got it. Marge, systems are pausing. Enjoy your day off. The line went dead. I smiled. One domino down. I started the car and drove out of the lot. As I turned onto the main road, I passed a line of delivery trucks using Nexus logistics software. They looked so efficient. Those sleek white vans with the digital tracking. The drivers had no idea that in about an hour, their routing algorithms were going to start glitching because the mapping API vendor, Sarah from GeoRoute, whom I sent a holiday card to every year, was about to read my email. I didn't go home. I couldn't sit in my apartment and stare at the screens. I needed a command post. I drove to the Bite Stop, a coffee shop about 3 miles away. It was a tech worker joint, exposed brick, artisanal pour-overs, and power outlets at every table. It was perfect. I walked in. The barista, Jake, nodded at me. He knew me. I'd spent many late nights here during deployment crunches. The usual, Margaret, keep the espresso coming, Jake, and give me the strong Wi-Fi password. I set up my laptop on the reclaimed wood table. My phone started buzzing. Again and again and again. Incoming call. Stripe payment support. Incoming call. Salesforce integration team. Incoming call. Derek Crawford work. I stared at Derek's name dancing on the screen. I let it ring. He called again immediately. I let it ring again. I took a sip of the espresso. It tasted like freedom. I opened a new tab on my browser. I wasn't done yet. I had notified the vendors. Now I needed to notify the competitors. But not yet. That was too aggressive. First, I needed to let Derek sweat. I needed him to feel the silence of the dashboards, not updating, and the chaos of the Slack channels exploding. I looked at the clock. 11:15 a.m. At 11:30 a.m., the daily stand-up meeting was scheduled to happen. Usually, I ran the infrastructure review. I would tell the engineering managers which servers were under load, which APIs were throttling, and which deployments were priority. Today, Brittany would be running it. I imagined Brittany standing in front of a room full of grizzled DevOps engineers, holding her tablet, trying to explain why half the payment processing was throwing 503 errors and why the cloud vendors were demanding to speak to a Margaret. Sorry, guys, I whispered to the empty coffee shop booth. The frequency is about to get real low. Then a text message popped up. Not from a vendor, from Linda, the office manager. She was a good egg. Quiet, organized, brought excellent donuts on Fridays. Linda Margaret. OMG, are you gone? Derek is screaming in the hallway. He says you sabotaged the servers. He can't access the admin panel. I chuckled. I didn't sabotage anything. I just had the two-factor authentication codes sent to my personal phone because IT, which was outsourced to a cheap firm in a generic time zone, had set it up that way 4 years ago and never changed it. I texted back, I didn't touch the servers. Linda, but tell him the 2FA codes expire in 30 seconds. He might want to hurry. I didn't send him the codes. I just took a bite of my croissant. The war had begun, and I had root access. The coffee shop was filling up with the lunch crowd. Remote workers, startup founders, people with names like Chad and Madison wearing fleece vests. It was a symphony of clicking keyboards and pretentious coffee orders. In the middle of it, I was the conductor of a silent orchestra of digital disaster. My laptop screen was a dashboard of my own making. I had a status page open, publicly available, by the way, monitoring the uptime of Nexus's client-facing services. Yellow warning indicators were appearing on the dashboard. A yellow indicator meant degraded performance for more than 15 minutes. There was a cluster of yellow warnings forming around the payment processing module. That would be Stripe pausing their integration. The SSL certificate renewal I usually handled manually, because the automated system had a known bug with our specific configuration was probably failing right now. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. But the area code was 650. Silicon Valley. Text, Ms. Chen. This is Patterson, legal counsel for DataSync Corp. Our API integration with Nexus is returning authentication errors. Your office is unresponsive. Are we in breach, or are you? I typed back. Mr. Patterson, I am no longer with Nexus. Please refer to Section 12.4 of your service agreement. I cannot authorize system access. Good luck. 3 minutes later, another yellow indicator appeared on the status page. DataSync integration. It was working. The system wasn't crashing. It was freezing. It was a safety mechanism, like when a program enters a deadlock to prevent data corruption. The vendors were protecting themselves because the guarantor of their system integrity, me, was gone. I ordered a refill on the espresso. Jake poured it with expertise. You look like you're debugging a production outage, he said, eyeing my laptop. Better. Jake, I said, I'm auditing one. At 12:45 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Derek this time. It was the frantic, breathless voice of Brittany. I debated not answering, but Schadenfreude is a vice, and I'm a sinner. This is Margaret. I answered, my voice professional, calm, the voice of a woman who isn't currently watching a platform implode. Margaret, Brittany shrieked. She sounded like she was crying or hyperventilating. You have to give us the passwords. The clients are calling. Everything is throwing errors. Brittany, I said gently, I don't have the passwords. They're in the credential vault. We can't get into the vault. It keeps asking for codes sent to your phone. Ah, I said, that's the two-factor authentication. Security protocol. Very important for data integrity. Well, give me the codes, she screamed. I can't. Brittany, I'm a civilian now. Sharing security credentials with unauthorized personnel is a violation of SOC 2 compliance. I could face legal liability. You wouldn't want that, would you? There was a silence on the other end, a stunned, baffled silence. But Derek says, you're holding the systems hostage. Derek fired me. Brittany, effective immediately. That means my administrative access is revoked. If I give you those codes, I'm technically hacking. I won't break the law for a company I don't work for. I'm putting you on speaker, she hissed. Margaret? It was Derek. His voice was tight, strained. The confidence was cracked. Leaking panic. Stop playing games. Give us the codes, or I'm suing you for corporate sabotage. Derek, I said, leaning back, you fired me for culture fit. You said I was replaceable. Surely your agile leadership team can figure out how to reset credentials with your IT vendor. We called them. They said the account admin has to authorize the reset. That's you. Sounds like a flaw in your org chart. I said, I'd suggest you call the vendor's emergency line. It costs $2,000 per incident, but they can override it in, maybe 48 hours. 48 hours? Derek exploded. We have the Black Friday traffic surge in 3 days. Our systems will collapse. Black Friday? Right. That's tricky. You need the auto-scaling configured. Did you test the load balancer failover? I usually do that manually, because the automated system has edge cases. I heard a thud. It sounded like someone punching a standing desk. Fix it. Margaret, come back in. Fix it, and maybe we won't sue you. Are you offering me my job back? I asked. I'm offering you a chance to not be destroyed, he yelled. No thanks, I said. I'm busy. I'm reorganizing my home office. Feng shui. Very important for the vibes. I hung up. I stared at the phone. My hand was shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. I had just hung up on the CEO of a $2 billion company. I looked at the status page. More yellow indicators. A cluster near the e-commerce module now. The payment processing. I felt a twinge of guilt. Not for Derek, but for the small businesses. The shop owners who depended on Nexus to process their holiday sales. They were the innocent users here. I opened my contact list. I found the number for East Coast Eddie, the tech lead at our biggest e-commerce client, who I'd helped through 3 Black Fridays. I texted him, Eddie, it's Margaret. I'm out. The kid is driving the platform off a cliff. The payment processing is going to start failing. Don't let your merchants panic. Tell them to enable the backup payment gateway. I configured it 2 years ago as a failsafe. It's already authorized. Eddie texted back instantly. Roger that. Tech mom, I heard the news. We got you. Screw the kid. We'll save the merchants. But we ain't processing through Nexus until you say so. I smiled. The merchants were safe. The small businesses were protected. Derek was screwed. I realized then that I wasn't just unemployed. I was a freelancer. And my currency was trust. I closed the laptop. The coffee shop crowd was thinning. I needed to make a move. Sitting here was reactive. I needed to be proactive. I thought about who stood to gain the most from Nexus's collapse. Vertex Cloud Solutions. Our biggest competitor. Their VP of Enterprise. A shark named Rachel Torres had been trying to recruit me for a decade. I always said no out of loyalty to Old Man Crawford. Loyalty is a two-way protocol. And Derek had just terminated the connection. I picked up my phone. I dialed Rachel's number. She answered on the second ring. Margaret Chen. Her smooth voice purred. What do I owe the pleasure? Did you finally get tired of maintaining legacy code for peanuts? I'm free. Rachel, I said. Free. Fired this morning. There was a pause. A thoughtful, expensive pause. Where are you? She asked. At the bite stop on University Avenue. Stay there, Rachel said. I'm sending a car. We have lunch and we talk about the future. Rachel, I said, one thing. Yes, I'm not coming alone. I'm bringing Amazon Web Services, Stripe payment processing, and Cloudflare security with me. I could practically hear her smiling through the phone. I'll send the Tesla, she said. A black Model S pulled up to a coffee shop. It stuck out like a compiled binary in a pile of source code. The driver, a woman who looked like she moonlighted as a fitness instructor, opened the door for me. I grabbed my beat-up laptop bag. Jake behind the counter whistled. Moving up in the stack. Margaret. Just a different kind of deployment. Jake, I said. I slid into the back seat. It smelled like new leather and venture capital. As we glided onto the highway, heading toward the tech district, I checked the news on my phone. Nothing on the major outlets yet. Tech infrastructure is boring until it breaks. But the industry blogs were lighting up. TechCrunch, Headline, Nexus, Digital Systems, reporting, major platform outage. Clients scrambling. The information, who is Margaret Chen, why enterprise clients are refusing to trust. Nexus. I almost laughed. I was trending in the nerdiest corner of the internet. I was a meme. My phone vibrated. A voicemail. It was from my mother. Linda, the office manager, must have called the family group chat. Margaret, my mom's voice quavered. Pastor Kim heard you were fired. We're praying for you. Also, your cousin wants to know if you can still help him fix his WordPress site. Call me. I rubbed my temples. Even in the apocalypse, Cousin Brian needs his plugins updated. We arrived at the Algorithm, a restaurant downtown where the waiters wear black turtlenecks and the sparkling water costs $12. Rachel Torres was waiting at a corner booth. She looked like a Bond villain who decided to go into cloud computing instead of world domination. Perfectly tailored blazer, silver earrings, eyes that calculated market share in real time. Margaret, she stood, offering a hand. You look energized. I look like I've been deprecated. Rachel, I said, sitting down, let's cut the crap. You know what's happening? I do. She nodded, signaling the waiter. Our sales team is reporting a massive uptick in inbound inquiries. Nexus clients are asking about migration paths. Support tickets are skyrocketing. It's a feeding frenzy. Derek is panicking, I said, unfolding the napkin. He's trying to restore systems he doesn't understand, but he doesn't have the institutional knowledge. And why is that? Margaret Rachel leaned in. Why are the vendors pausing? Enterprise clients don't freeze over a mid-level engineer getting fired. I'm not mid-level, Rachel. I'm the single point of failure. They know that without me, the certificates might expire, the integrations might break, the compliance audits might fail. I didn't tell them to stop. I just told them I wasn't there to maintain the systems anymore. Self-preservation did the rest. The waiter arrived. I ordered a whiskey. Neat. Rachel ordered sparkling water. So, Rachel said, what do you want? A VP title corner office. We can match your salary plus 30%. I don't want a job. Rachel, I said, staring at her. I want autonomy. Explain. I want to build a division within Vertex. Strategic enterprise accounts. I bring my book of business, my vendors, my clients, my trust. I run it my way. No interference from your chief wellness officer or whatever corporate theater you have. I report to you and only you. And if I say, we provision emergency capacity, we provision it. If I say we pay premium for 24/7 support to save a client's Black Friday, we pay it. Rachel tapped her finger on the table. You're asking for a fiefdom. I'm offering you an empire. I corrected her. Nexus is hemorrhaging. By tomorrow morning, their major clients, the enterprise e-commerce platforms, the fintech apps, the logistics trackers, they'll be looking for a lifeboat. I can be that lifeboat, but I captain the ship. Rachel smiled. It was a predatory smile, but I liked it. It was honest. Deal, she said. But you have to bring AWS partnership with you immediately. We have a backlog. Done, I said. Give me a contract. While we were waiting for the food, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. Text. You leaked the API keys. I know what you did. It was Derek. He'd moved from professional threats to personal accusations. I texted back. I didn't leak anything. I just didn't renew the security certificate license. It expired at noon. Should have checked the auto-renewal settings. I took a sip of whiskey. It burned. But it was a good burn. Then a notification popped up that made my stomach drop. Alert Security Incident Report. Nexus Digital Systems. Client Database. Experiencing unauthorized access attempt. Potential data breach in progress. My blood ran cold. Data breach. That was the authentication vulnerability I'd been patching. The one I was working on when Derek interrupted me. the one that wasn't finished because I got fired before I could deploy the fix. I called Tony at AWS immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Margaret, tell me you saw it," Tony said. He sounded shaken. "I saw the alert." "Was it our vulnerability?" "Yeah. But listen, it wasn't from outside. It was internal. Some junior developer Derek hired off a freelance platform this morning tried to push a hotfix without proper code review. They accidentally exposed the authentication tokens in a public repository." "Oh my God," I whispered. "The kid didn't know the security protocols." "Margaret, they pushed to production without the proper signing, leaked credentials all over GitHub. The security team is scrambling. This isn't just a downtime anymore. This is a federal notification." I closed my eyes. This is what happens. This is the cost of arrogance. It's not just money. It's data. It's privacy. It's trust. "Is the data contained?" I asked. "They're working on it. But Nexus? They're done. Margaret, the FTC is going to investigate. Their clients are going to demand breach notifications. Mandatory, immediate security audit." I looked at Rachel across the table. She saw the look on my face. "What happened?" she asked. "Nexus just breached itself." I said, "Leaked credentials. Junior developer without proper access. FTC is going to investigate." Rachel whistled low. "The stock is going to zero." "Derek doesn't just need a lawyer," I said. Standing up, "He needs a crisis management firm." I grabbed my bag. "Where are you going?" Rachel asked. "We haven't signed the papers." "Draw them up," I said. "I have to go make sure none of my former colleagues get dragged down with the ship. And then I have to have a conversation with a very angry father. Old man Crawford. He lands in 2 hours," I said, checking the flight tracker I still had bookmarked for his private jet, "and I'm going to meet him at the airport." This wasn't just business anymore. It was a rescue mission. I didn't go to the airport immediately. I went to the one place I knew Derek wouldn't think to look. But the people who actually mattered would find me. The archives. It wasn't a library. It was a storage unit in an industrial park where Nexus kept physical copies of contracts and compliance documents dating back to the founding. I had a key. I always had a key. I needed the original indemnity clauses signed by Old Man Crawford, the ones that explicitly stated that security compliance was the sole responsibility of the active CEO. I needed to prove that when I walked out, the chain of custody broke and the negligence was 100% on Derek. I was digging through a box marked 2019 security protocols when the metal roll-up door rattled. I didn't flinch. I knew who it was. "You're trespassing." "Margaret." I turned around. It was David Solomon, Nexus's general counsel, 55 years old, suit that cost more than my car, eyes that had seen every corporate scandal and felt nothing. "It's not trespassing if I still have the key." "David," I said, holding up a file, "and technically, I'm doing discovery for my own defense." David sighed and walked in. He didn't look angry. He looked exhausted. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped a spot on a dusty filing cabinet before leaning against it. "The FTC is swarming the headquarters," David said. "They're imaging the servers. Derek is locked in his office crying. Literally crying. Margaret, Brittany is live streaming an apology on Instagram. It's grotesque. He hired an unvetted developer for a security-critical system." "David, what did he expect? He expected you to fix it," David said quietly. "He thought you were bluffing. He didn't realize that you were the system. I didn't break it." "David," I said, my voice hard. "I just stopped maintaining it." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm here. The board is holding an emergency meeting tonight. They want to offer you a settlement, a big one, to come back and talk to the regulators, to say this was a miscommunication during a transition. I laughed. It echoed in the cold storage unit. A miscommunication. There's a data breach. Customer information is exposed. You want me to go under oath and say that's a whoopsie. We want you to save the company, David said. For the employees, for Linda in the office, for the engineers. I am saving them. I said, I'm moving them. I'm taking a job with Vertex. David, and I'm taking the good people with me. David's face fell. He knew what that meant. It was the death certificate. And Crawford David asked, does he know? He knows the stock is crashing. He doesn't know why yet, but he lands in 30 minutes. And I'm going to be the one to tell him. He's going to blame you. David warned. He's a father first, a businessman second. He'll see this as betrayal. He can see it however he wants. I said, tucking the file into my bag. But he's going to listen to me. I walked past David. He didn't try to stop me. Margaret, he called out as I reached the door. I paused. That email regarding Section 12.4, he said. Brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. It tied my hands completely. I couldn't even threaten the vendors legally because they were contractually obligated to pause. Read the fine print. David, I said. I wrote it. The private airfield was quiet. The sun was setting, leaving the sky a bruised orange. I parked near the fence, watching the runway lights flicker on. A Gulf Stream descended from the clouds, sleek and white. It touched down with a screech of tires. The founder was home. I waited by the gate. Old man Crawford stormed down the stairs. Phone pressed to his ear, shouting. He looked around for his car. His driver wasn't there. The driver was probably stuck in the chaos at headquarters. Then he saw my Honda Accord. I rolled down the window. He stormed over, his jacket flapping in the wind. You, he roared, pointing a finger at me. You ungrateful, treacherous. Get in, Walter, I said, using his first name. I never used his first name. He stopped. The shock of it silenced him. Get in, I repeated. Your driver isn't coming. Derek fired the IT ops team, so nobody configured the scheduling system. I'm the only one who knew you were landing early. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he opened the passenger door and climbed in. Start talking. He growled. I talked. For 45 minutes, I told him everything. The birthday party, ultimatum. The firing, the vendor freeze, the security breach, the FTC investigation. By the end, his face was ashen. How much he asked, finally. The breach notification alone will cost 8 figures, legal fees, regulatory fines, client lawsuits. You're looking at $50 million minimum. And that's before the stock collapse. Walter stared out the windshield. My son, he said quietly. My idiot son. He didn't listen. Walter, I tried to warn him. He thought the systems ran themselves. What do you want? Margaret Walter asked, turning to face me. You didn't come here for an apology. No. I said, I came here to make you an offer. The conversation with Walter lasted another hour. By the end, we had a deal. Vertex would acquire Nexus's enterprise client base for fair market value. The employees would be offered positions. The pension contributions would be honored. Derek would be removed as CEO and face the legal consequences of his negligence. And I would lead the integration. 3 weeks later, my new office at Vertex has a glass wall. I can see the server room from here. I can see the blinking lights of the systems I now command. Some of those servers still run Nexus code, but they have Vertex security patches now. We're calling it the acquisition of the year. Wired wrote an article about it. They called me the Iron Lady of infrastructure. I hate it, but I framed it for my mom. Derek is facing federal charges. Rumors say Brittany is testifying against him in exchange for immunity. She's launching a podcast about surviving toxic tech culture. I subscribed. It's hilarious. Walter is back in Montana. He sent me a case of whiskey. I haven't opened it. The engineers kept their jobs. Tony from AWS sent me a massive gift basket that required 2 people to carry it to my desk. The card read, "To the real admin." The systems run when you say run. I sat at my desk, looking at the clean monitoring dashboard on my 3 screens. No yellow warnings, no red alerts, just green lights. My assistant, a sharp kid named Jamie, who actually understands distributed systems, walked in, mail call, Margaret. She dropped a stack of envelopes on my desk. I flipped through them. Vendor contracts, thank you notes, and then a small white envelope. It was from a law firm, Derek's lawyers. I opened it. A letter from Derek, typed, not handwritten. "Margaret, you think you won. You're just a cog. You'll always be a cog. I hope you enjoy your server room." I looked at my sprawling corner office. I looked at the view of the infrastructure I now commanded. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. He was a deprecated function, a bug I had patched. I picked up the letter. I walked over to the shredder. The white paper turned into confetti. I walked back to my desk. My phone rang. It was Rachel. "Margaret, we have a situation. Major client is reporting latency issues. We need a system review." I smiled. "I'm on it," I said. I put on my headset. I pulled up the monitoring dashboard. The machine was humming, and I was the one holding the root access. "Let's deploy some fixes," I said to the empty room. And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't need the coffee. Thanks for watching, you keyboard warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're currently debugging your legal defense. Like, comment. Share with anyone who's ever been told they were replaceable. Share with anyone who's ever been dismissed as overhead. Share with anyone who knows what it's like to be invisible until the moment invisibility becomes power. Because there are always more stories where this came from. And somewhere out there, another invisible systems administrator is watching, waiting, documenting everything. The logs never lie, even when management wants them to, especially when management wants them to.